everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gitte Mary and today is an impact video. And actually it's an impact video combined with a life work update video, because today we're going to talk about the impact of physical books in contrast to ebooks, e-readers, etc. And we're going to find out what's more sustainable and how to best consume literature. That's what we're going to do. And the reason why we're going to do that is because yesterday my book arrived in the mail. I wrote a book in 2020 in Danish called Bæredygtig Badass, and I immediately started translating it to English because I wanted everybody to be able to enjoy it and to learn from it and to use it as a resource guide, and simply just if you have any questions in your everyday lives and wonder what the heck would Gitte Mary do in this situation, I wrote a book about just that. Okay, and I am so ready to show you. I have already showed you the cover, sort of like a mock-up of the cover, but now I have the real physical book. It's also right there behind me next to the Danish one. So I am very, very excited about this, and the process of writing a book has been incredibly inspiring and motivational and hard and difficult and tough for sure. I'm just so happy to finally have a book for you guys, and of course it's going to be available in physical form as well as an ebook and an audiobook, so everybody can join in. I will leave some different links as to how and where you can find it, but basically anywhere where you can buy books online you can find it, and you can also get your local bookstore to purchase it for you and support local businesses that way. It will also be for sale on bigger, like the platforms of which we do not speak, because they're awful. It's also on there because there's really no way around that, and that's not my decision. However, I would definitely advise everybody to not use that platform, but instead use local businesses, smaller businesses, anybody but the Bezos. And obviously, as someone who cares and wants to have a small impact, I want to talk about impact in general. I've had a lot of thoughts and different thought processes about how to go about this with the book, and I've researched and learned, and I've made mistakes and I've tried to correct them, etc. And I thought it could be fun to sort of do like an impact video where I talk about my sort of thought process regarding ebooks and physical books, and just give you guys a little bit of an overview. Actually, also the impact and what is the most sustainable option for you differs depending on what your reading habits are and how you read and how you consume literature, etc. So I want to give you guys an overview on how to most sustainably read anything, not just my book, but anything. So let's get started. And I'll see if I can calm the heck down. So producing one book, one physical paper book, produces about 7.5 kilograms of CO2 and consumes about 2 kilowatt hours. And that might not sound like a lot, but if you purchase tons of books simply just to leave them on a bookshelf and never touch them and never enjoy them and never use them, obviously that's a big impact. Someone once commented on one of the impact videos that if that series had taught them anything, it's that it's the usability and functionality of a product that makes it sustainable. So nothing really is inherently sustainable. It all depends on how you use the products you have, which is true. And I mean, obviously there's tons of things we can do in supply chains and with transparency and logistics and sourcing of material, etc. But if the products aren't used, if they're just wasted in the end by just, being there and not being used, it's not really sustainable. So that's something to consider. So for me, it was extremely important when I wrote my book that it wasn't something you could just like skim a couple of times and then place it on a bookshelf and never look at it again. I wanted it to be something that felt natural to include in your everyday lives. So there's something about cooking and trash and recycling and fashion and beauty and skincare and just electronics and flying and travel and internet use and just everything. So it's really meant to be something that you pick up constantly and feel inspired by, and then you put it back and then you take it out again and then you put it back and then you take it out again. You see, instead of just having it be something that ends up in a dark corner somewhere, never to be used again after you've purchased it. We don't want that. We're not about that life. And this might not be in the best interest of myself, but it's something I so thoroughly believe in. I think it's important to borrow from each other, to lend things to others, to use things in a sharing economy. So instead of everybody buying each individual thing themselves, it's so much easier and so much more sustainable, really, to share, which I think is super important. That also means buying secondhand, borrowing things from a library, and just using things you already have. So perhaps your friend is getting it, or one of your parents is getting it. Then you can use it once they've read it and then give it back, and then you can sort of share everything. I think that's really a good way to go about it. And with books especially, I think, because usually you read it once, especially with fiction, but with non-fiction as well, I assume. You read it and then that was the experience, and that was the experience you could take from that product. Then you put it back and then you don't really take it out again. So instead, borrowing, sharing, it's so much more sustainable. So no matter what, that's definitely something to consider. And I love hearing about how you guys share this book. It's some of the best things that you can tell me. So your girl is not here to make super bank. If I did, I would be in a different field. I definitely would. A question I've gotten many times also when the Danish book came out is that, why didn't I just do it as an ebook? Why did I have to make a physical copy? And I think that's a really good question. I want to answer it with several different answers that all tie together. So first of all, I think there was something about having a physical product, which I assume a lot of people will just, think is a little bit of a shitty excuse. I don't know, but having something physical has always had a bigger impact on me and my own learning abilities. And I feel like I am able personally to treasure things and to take things in and to learn and to understand in a more clear way if I have a physical thing in front of me. Then I will cherish that information more because it is physical. Obviously that plays a role because that's how I see the world myself, and that's how I prefer to consume literature in general. So obviously that plays somewhat of a role. I'll be lying if I said it wasn't. So let's talk a little bit about ebooks, because ebooks can have very different impacts depending again on how you consume them. So if you're reading ebooks on devices you already use for other things, like if you're reading out on your phone, your tablet, laptop, etc., something that you use for either work or leisure, or generally something that has multiple purposes, the impact of the ebook will only be the streaming or the downloading of the ebook. The storage in the cloud on the internet will be the primary impact, and that won't be any larger than watching a show or a movie on Netflix. It will most likely be a little bit smaller. It wouldn't be an impact I would consider in my everyday life for sure. Overall, it's quite tiny. It's not a lot of data. It wouldn't be that massive. However, as soon as you buy an e-reader specifically for reading, the impact can increase significantly if you do not read a whole lot of books. If you read 2 or 3 books a year and buy a specific e-reader to read those books, the impact of simply buying those books physically would actually have been smaller. Because the thing is with electronic equipment in general is that the supply chains are extremely long. There's a lot of material that goes into it. There's batteries, mineral, mining, all of these things in the supply chain all add up in the final impact of the product. So if you're only using it a couple of times a year, that will definitely be more unsustainable or higher impact than simply buying the book or using your phone, laptop, etc. to read them. Producing one e-reader will generate about 30 kilograms of CO2. It requires about 15 kilograms of minerals. It also requires 79 gallons of water, and the production of one e-reader consumes about 100 kilowatt hours. Does that mean that physical books are inherently always more sustainable? Well, obviously not. That's not the point of this. And the logging industry and the paper industry in general is not innocent and is also not necessarily low impact. It's an incredibly long supply chain again, so it can be a little bit difficult to find out where paper is specifically sourced. We do have different types of certifications to sort of make that a little bit clearer, like FSC. However, not a perfect system whatsoever, but it's some of the best things you can do along with recycled paper. I also have a video about certifications like FSC if you want to know more about sort of what they're doing well and what they're definitely not doing well enough. The US book and newspaper industry is responsible for cutting down about 100 million trees every year. So looking for sustainable paper is definitely a must. The bottom line is that saving paper is great, but if you're only reading 1-3-ish books a year, it would be more sustainable to simply just use the physical books rather than buying a specific e-reader if you're not going to use your phone or your laptop. I saw this great graph that sort of shows the impact of e-readers in contrast to physical books, specifically for university books, but I think it's pretty useful. Okay, sort of shows my point. Also, I've left some links to some different resources if you want to check out more about this down below. So as a conclusion for this video, my point is generally to inspire conscious consuming. That means figuring out what your needs are specifically and acting in a way that feels in alignment with what your behavior and your patterns and your needs are. So if you're only reading a couple of books a year, perhaps go for a physical book if that's your jam. But if you're going through tons and tons and tons of books all the time, getting ebooks is definitely a good idea as well. Obviously, you can also get books secondhand, both older books as well as newer books, Facebook Marketplace and all these different sort of platforms. I know there are book selling and reselling groups on Facebook. There are definitely platforms where you can get books secondhand, which completely removes the impact of it because it's already here and it's pre-loved. Definitely recommend. In terms of my book, do the same thing. Share it with your buddy, share it with your family. I think it's an amazing opportunity to share knowledge with each other and talk about what you're learning and sort of what your relationship to that knowledge is. Also, you can borrow it at libraries, which I also think is pretty cool. I heard last year that my book in one of the larger Danish cities had a waiting list of 3 months because so many people wanted to read it but didn't want to buy it because of the impact, so they wanted to borrow it at the library. And I was so happy. I think that's so cool. Like, conscious friends. Lastly, just a big thank you to Mango for publishing my book in the rest of the world, which I think is pretty cool. And a big thank you to Imi from Sustainably Vegan. She wrote the foreword for the book and enjoyed reading her words so much. She is such an amazingly knowledgeable person, and I'm so honored that she wanted to be a part of this process. So thank you to you guys as well, by the way, because if no one were watching my videos, I don't think anyone would be interested in publishing any of my things. So I'm just generally today filled with gratitude in the best possible way. It's a little bit surreal. Now they're standing right there in the background, and I can almost feel like the Sustainable Badass production coming to an end, because there's not really a lot more work for me to do other than promoting it and talking about it, and have some podcasts I have to appear in, and we're doing some different promotional things, but the footwork of these books are done, which is an insane process. It's taken 3 years in general, first with me writing the first book and then translating it, and I've been working with my friends all around to sort of make sure that this is happening, and I've worked with some really amazing friends and knowledgeable people on this book, so I'm just really excited. And I'm writing another one. Right now I'm writing a cookbook, and it's not gonna be your everyday run-of-the-mill vegan everyday food cookbook. It's gonna be a nerdy gourmet gastro guide. It's gonna be about plant-based fine dining. It's gonna be a fun and playful way of looking at plant-based foods and how you can incorporate that into sort of like a finer gourmet setting. I'm writing it right now. I'm having so much fun in this process, and yeah, we're gonna start the book process all over again, but I honestly think this is some of the most inspirational work I've ever done, so yay. Okay, and that was the impact of books versus ebooks. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I would love to hear what you guys are thinking. And I'll also leave links to order the book and sort of guide to where you can find it down below, etc. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for your incredible support and your kindness. I will see you guys in my next video. Take really good care of yourselves. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!